It's January of 2020. I'm fresh out of primary school and I've made plans to stay at a girl's house for the night. But as far as my parents were concerned, I was just staying another night at my mate's house because that's where my mum had dropped me the previous day. I walked to this girl's house early morning. For the sake of this story, we'll call her Sienna. I arrive at Sienna's house and I'm greeted by Sienna, her friend who I knew from school, and her friend's boyfriend. Now obviously I wasn't just intending to stay at this girl's house because we were friends. Clearly I felt there was some sort of connection, some chemistry between us. So the whole day I was just anticipating something to happen between us. You know, I'm getting sort of closer and closer to her as the day goes on. But it gets to around 3 p.m. and we're sitting on the couch together alone. One thing sort of leads to another. We end up making out with each other. Guess a little later in the afternoon, we start making plans for what we're going to do later that night. Given the fact that there's 3 of us, we're looking for something, you know, entertaining to do. 4 if you including me, sorry. So we end up finding this older girl who they knew to get us some beverages. Walk up to the local shops at around 6 p.m, acquire the beverages from this girl, walk back down, and we play the waiting game. You know, 9:30. Her mum finally decides to go to bed. We sit around for maybe half an hour just to make sure she's definitely, you know, safe and sound in bed. She's not going to hop up anytime soon. And at 10 p.m, we start hooking into the ACJ annual days. If you know, you know. And let's just say I start to feel very different, extremely fast. So, gets to around 11 p.m. and Sienna invites me into her room. She says, you know, come to my room. So I walk down the hallway, sort of very wobbly, make my way to her room, and we're just laying there in the dark making out with each other. We end up doing a few things together, you know, she scratched my back, I scratch hers type shit. She my but it gets to around 11:30 p.m. and we hear a knock on the window super loud. So as soon as I hear this, me being an out of my mind 12-year-old, I think, fuck, someone's trying to rob this girl's house. So I jump up out of the bed and I turn my flash on, I open up the window and I'm telling her like, oh, I'll bash whoever it is, you know, I'll bash the robber. And like, we're both actually really concerned, we're worried because she'd never had that happen before. I put my torch out the window and I see someone's face. I'm scared, my heart's like palpitating. But she looks out the window and she says, oh, that's just my brother. So obviously we stop, you know, doing what we had been doing. She gets up off the bed and goes to the front door to let him in. He would have only been there for about an hour, you know, he ends up leaving around 12, maybe 12:30 a.m. That's when Sienna and I decide to get straight back to it. But as we're doing it, she says to me, she wants to, you know, and I tell her that I would, but I don't want to because I'm scared of what my brother will do to me. Because I remember just a few months prior, my brother told me that if I lost my vCard, he was going to bash me, right? I don't know why, it came out of nowhere. I never had told him that I planned to do that, but that's what he told me. So I was fearful. I did not want to do that. So we just end up doing the same things that we were doing earlier. I end up, you know, finishing, and we go into the other room with the girl I knew from school and her boyfriend. We're just sitting around talking for the night. Now, on this particular occasion, I remember I finished pretty much all of the ACJ annual day by myself. I hope you're catching my drift here, but I wake up the next morning and it goes without saying I was feeling absolutely fucked. When I tell you I've never felt like this again in my life, that would be an understatement. Despite all the poor decisions I made in high school, I felt like I had been hit by an absolute fucking truck that morning. I remember walking to the park nearby to get picked up by my mum, you know, because she thought I was at my mate's house. And the sun on my skin, bro, it just felt like it was burning, just drying me out. But this is where it gets super interesting. I get picked up by my mum. And as we're driving home, I'd say we're about 5 minutes away from my house. I'm feeling really, really woozy, really sick in the gut. Oh, you right, mate? She says to me, and I say, yeah, and I'm just feeling a bit sick. And then all of a sudden, in her brand new car, just spew everywhere, bro, like all over the dash, all over the console, all over the chairs, and some of it nearly got on her. As soon as it happens, she obviously, you know, pulls up and she's doing her best to clean it up for me. You know, I'm a 12-year-old kid. She feels sorry for me and she's asking me, oh, what could that be from? And I obviously know what it's from, but I tell her, oh, me and my mate, we had some hot chips and gravy. Maybe I got like food poisoning or something. And she says, oh, that's no good, matey. When you get home, you'll have to take a warm shower and lie down. So I get home, that's what I end up doing. But when I get home and I'm lying down, I actually have time to think for a minute, think rationally. And I'm thinking about all the poor decisions I made the night before, how much I regret, what I did with that girl, how much I regret my decisions. And I end up sort of messaging her, telling her, don't tell anyone, no one can know about this, and that I didn't want to date her. But fast forward to February of the same year, it's swimming carnival day, and I'm taking photos with a few of my boys. I've made a few mates by this point. We're about a month into school. And this grade 8 girl, who I'd spoken to a handful of times, was really coming onto me hard. Some of you may heard a fraction of this story, but this girl, she wanted to take photos with me. Every photo we took, she was jumping on my back, she was hugging me. And I'd never felt this level of connection, this chemistry with the girl before. I remember when all the races were off, we were allowed to jump in the pool and have like free time swimming. She jumped in with me and she wanted me to piggyback her up the deep end because she couldn't stand up there. And so we were flirting back and forth all day. But somehow my dumbass 12-year-old brain couldn't quite compute whether or not this girl was actually interested. So it gets to around 1 p.m. and I end up just sort of saying to her, like, I'm interested in you. I don't remember exactly how the conversation went. Well, once again, one thing leads to another. We end up kissing each other whilst my mates and her mates are at the canteen. Get some photos together, ends up being a pretty complete day. We end up making out pretty much every single day after school for the next week, until I finally muster up the courage to say to her how I feel. I want her to be my girlfriend. I want it to be more than just making out after school. So I end up asking her, will you be my girlfriend? And she says to me, no, I'm not ready for that. You're a good kisser. No, it was something like that. And I was like, my little 12-year-old self was just like heartbroken, bro, because this girl, she was super hot. And I knew I'd get the validation I was seeking from my mates if I were to date this girl, because I knew both of them found her very attractive. So I was definitely cut by the decision she made. We stopped talking after that. I could have kept it going, but I sort of chose not to, which was a good choice. Anyhow, fast forward a little bit to a Friday afternoon in early March. The bell's just rung to go home. For the weekend, I'm thinking less age, fucking video games, Netflix, junk food, late nights, living that 12-year-old dream. By this point, I've been getting a bit more attention from girls. I'd been flirting with a few girls at school here and there. I was actually enjoying school at this point, but as I'm walking up the stairs to go out the front gate of school, I hear someone yell out, "Oi, Luke!" So I look, and it's Sienna, the girl from a few months before. I'll stop walking and, she runs up to me and she says, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" This and that. She's telling me all the things she's been up to, and I tell her, "Oh, not much. I'll probably just do some stuff with my boys." And then she starts telling me about her friend, who I found quite attractive, that had just recently lost her vCard the previous weekend. So as soon as I hear this, being the lustful 12-year-old boy that I am, I'm thinking, oh, how can I get a slice of this pie, right? Now, for the sake of this story, we'll call this girl Brittany, right? I had met Brittany one time at a party. We'd barely spoken. She was actually in a relationship back then, but she still had her vCard. But now that I'm hearing she's lost it, she's no longer, as the kids would say, frigid, and she was single, I say to Sienna, can you put me on with her? Can you get us together? And obviously her thinking I was attractive, she sent me a Snapchat. Later that night, I get home, I start snapping her back and forth. We're flirting straight away, there's chemistry there. Now, keeping in mind, at the time, I did not give a fuck about the quality of girls in terms of their values, their morals, their principles, all that sort of thing. All I cared about was losing my vCard. And I did not care if I had to have that girl be my girlfriend to do so, have her just be a one-time thing. But I was certain that I wanted to lose it before any other bloke my age. So Brittany and I end up snapping back and forth for, let's say, the next week. It gets to about Thursday of the following week, right? And Sienna invites me to her house to spend the night with Brittany there, right? So I'm gonna have to, sort of come up with a plan again. Say I'm staying at my mate's house again, and then walk from the park nearby to Sienna's house so I can spend the night with Brittany and finally lose my vCard. This is all that's on my mind. So it gets to around 5 p.m. and my mum drops me at the park. I walk to Sienna's house and I meet Brittany properly for the first time, introduce myself. It's a bit awkward at first, but we get 10 minutes in, we're already making out. But around, I'd say half an hour into being there, I get some terrible, terrible news. Brittany has just gotten her period. I'm thinking, oh, yeah, surely it's going to still be okay. I don't know about any of this stuff at the time, but she tells me we can't do it together until next weekend. So all I can think is my mind is, fuck. You know, I had my hopes so high. I was expecting to lose it that night. I'd brought 2 frengers with me, but it wasn't going to happen anymore. So anyhow, we ended up spending the entire evening together just making out in Sienna's room. You know, Sienna's literally just sitting there on her phone trying to organize a guy to come around or something, but she can't get him to come around. Gets to around 10 p.m. and Brittany and I are getting fairly tired. You know, we're ready to go to sleep. But that's when Sienna says to us that this guy wants us to come to his house, you know, sneak out later that night so that Sienna can punch cones with him. So we're sort of hesitant. We don't really want to, you know, it's getting cold. It's that time of year where it's really starting to drop in temperature. I didn't bring any other clothes. So we don't really want to, but it gets to about 12 a.m. Sienna's mum's gone to bed and we end up sneaking out to go and see this guy, you know, go to his house. As we're walking there, I remember we see like police flashing lights driving by us. So I get out my phone, like filming them, thinking I'm so cool, you know, 12-year-old kid. But we get to this guy's house at, I would say, about 12:40 a.m. And this girl's, you know, making out with him. They're punching cones together. And Brittany and I are in the other room making out as well. Now, here's the very interesting part. This guy's house we were at, yeah? You remember how Brittany lost her vCard just a couple weeks before? Yeah, that was this guy. So we were at the house of the guy who Brittany had lost her vCard to, and now I was with Brittany. Looking back, I see how fucked up that situation was, but at the time I didn't see a problem with it. You know, I thought it was normal. We end up going home at around 3 a.m. Finally get some sleep. Obviously, sleep schedule's fucked by this point. Wake up at like 12 p.m., 1 p.m. the next day. Walk to the park, get picked up by my mum. You know the drill. But I decide I don't really want to talk to Brittany anymore. I don't want to be in a relationship with her because she wasn't easy. I created such a false perception of how easy it should be to lose my vCard. You know, from watching porn, from all the things that I saw going on around me, you know, these older guys were losing it so easily. They didn't even have to be in a relationship. You know, they were doing it with girls all the time. So I'd created this thing in my mind that if it's not easy, I don't want it, it's not for me. So I end up telling this girl, you know, I don't want to be in a relationship with her. She sort of gets upset. She has a few of her friends like messaging me back and forth, one of which actually ended up being my girlfriend years later, but I won't mention that in this story. Now, 2 weeks after I stopped talking to Brittany, I start talking to the girl from this video here, right? I don't remember what I called her in that video, but we start talking, you know, everything's going well. We're talking for probably 3 months, still not dating. Every single time I would ask to date her, she would say no. Hadn't lost my vCard by this point, wasn't talking to any other girls. I was super loyal to this girl. This girl ends up cheating on me, if you can even call it that. You know, there were some photos sent to another guy, and so I end up sort of breaking up with her, if you can even call it that. And I stopped talking to girls after this. I'm completely done. You know, I don't want to get cheated on again, don't want to get heartbroken. I don't like to use that word. You know, I was 12, but it hurt at the time, right? And the whole time this was going on, I was falling behind in every aspect of life. I wasn't catching up on my assignments at school. I was way behind. My grades were dropping. Keeping in mind, I was in the top community class, which is like the second highest class in academics. So I was by no means a dumb kid, but I was dumb in my decisions that I made, which made me fall behind. I would have done maybe 2 assignments for the whole year. I was a smart kid, but because I lost my focus and started not just pursuing girls, but pursuing degenerate behavior, I fell behind. And it goes for anything in life, regardless of whether you're in school or not. If you put your focus towards the wrong thing, where focus goes, energy flows. If your energy is flowing towards the wrong things, you're going to be drained of your energy. If you put it towards something positive, that energy will be returned tenfold. If you're craving love right now, at least you think you are, I can almost guarantee you 9 times out of 10, what you're craving is lust. Because bro, I was 12, 13 years old at the time, right? What 12 or 13-year-old feels lonely, craves love? Obviously, as humans, we crave connection to people. But bro, you cannot honestly sit here right now and tell me you want to lose your vCard, you want to get into a relationship with the girl because you're lonely, because you feel lost. Maybe it's the case for some of you older guys, but I know a lot of my audience are younger. So my advice to any teenager out there is just to work on yourself, build the beautiful garden, and the butterflies will come. I know my reasoning for wanting to lose my vCard at 13 years old was purely just because I wanted to lose it before everyone else. And later on down the line, it became I just wanted to lose it because my mates were losing it, all right? It's not that important, it's not that deep. Lose it when you feel you're actually ready, when you feel the girl, you actually genuinely have a connection to her, and doing that is just going to further deepen that connection, you know, further spiritually bond you together, right? That's what should be used to do, not to quickly get off, you know, that quick dopamine, right? Hope this video helped. Smash that sub button if you enjoyed this story. I'll see you in the next one. Stay grinding, bro.